This is the Book Deal Podcast,
where you will discover the inspiring stories behind your favourite books.
We interview seasoned and debut authors, as well as publishing industry professionals, to bring you the best tips and advice on how to get that elusive book deal.
So no matter what stage of writing you're at, we've got you covered. I'm Tina Strawn.
I'm Madeline Cleary.
And I'm Natasha Rye.
And join us as we pull back the curtain of published authors,
one deal at a time. The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on, and pays respect to their elders past, present, and emerging.
Hello, wonderful podcast friends. I'm Tina Strawn, and welcome to the summer season of the Book Deal Podcast for the 25-26 years. We have had a huge year made possible by your incredible support. But it's time for Madeline, Natasha and I to have a little break. We have lots of writing to do, lots of gardening, lots of family time, and a fair bit of rest due to help us reset and prepare for another huge year in 2026. So over the next 5 weeks, we will be bringing you some of our most played eps of all time. Maybe they're ones you've not had a chance to listen to yet, or maybe you're listening for a second time and hearing new details you missed the first time. Either way, we hope you enjoy the eps and have a magical summer break or winter break for all of our Northern Hemisphere listeners. See you soon with new episodes of the Book Deal Podcast. Hi, I'm Tina Strawn, and today on the Book Deal Podcast, I'm chatting to picture book author Rory H Mather. If you know anything about Australian picture book authors, then you'll know about Rory. Rory's 14th picture book, Laugh in the Bath, has just been published with a firm press, and he has just signed his 20th picture book deal. So who better to ask for tips about how to get published than Rory? Stay tuned for this interview, which covers practical tips for getting your work in front of publishers, how to create a profile and build your writing community, and how to actually make a profit from this industry, something that many authors can only dream about. Thanks so much for being here at the Book Deal Podcast, Rory H Mather.
Thank you so much for having me, Tina.
So as you know, Rory, the Book Deal is all about helping to inspire and motivate writers who are trying to get that elusive book deal. And you are certainly someone who knows how to get a book deal. Are we at 17 picture books now, is it?
So my 14th comes out tomorrow, and then this is the first time I've spoken to anyone about it, but I got an offer for book number 20 last Friday.
Oh my God, that is huge. Well done. So obviously, of course, we wanted to get you here on the Book Deal Podcast because we know you have a lot of experience and no doubt some very helpful tips for our listeners and aspiring authors. But not only that, you are a father of a young family and you work full time, and somehow you're still pumping out these books. So I'm looking forward to grilling you about how you've managed that. But first, I'm going to list off the names of all your books so far that are out there, because there's lots of titles and lots of titles that listeners have probably heard of before, especially if they have little kids. Tell me if I've forgotten any. We've got Vlad's Bad Breath, Easter Catastrophe, Vlad's In Love, Get Back in Your Books, Rory the Lion, Monster School Rules, Sebastian Stands Out, Book Week Bear, My Little Star, Sloth's Love Parties, which is a favourite in our household, that one, I have to say, Brunacorn, Heart of a Tiger, Teachosaurus, and your very latest is Laugh in the Bath.
That's correct. Yep, got them all.
Gosh, did I get them all? All righty. Can we discuss your latest book, Rory? Can you give me the title and the one-liner and who you're with?
Yeah, so it's Laugh in the Bath, and it's just a story about the joy of bath time, particularly with little kids. So, as you said, I've got a young daughter, and I do all her bath times. So we've had a lot of laughs over the last nearly 2 years. And I didn't write this. Actually, I wrote this about a few years before she was born, but the title changed to Laugh in the Bath after she came along, and so it's really developed from there. And it's with Little Book Press, who are part of Raising Literacy Australia, where they're a charity organisation. and they're based out of South Australia. And I really wanted to work with Little Book Press because their publisher is Ali O'Brien, who's got loads of experience in the industry. Used to work for Harley Grant, for example, and I've just seen some of the books that she's worked on, and I thought it'd be great to work with her. And it's been a real joy. So it's illustrated by Brent Wilson, who I know personally. I know you know personally. He's a Brisbane illustrator. We've met a few times, and what was really cool about this particular book was how it came about that Brent was the illustrator. I've been listening to the podcast, and I know you talk about socials a bit and whatnot. And what happened was Ali, once we had signed the story, Ali had seen Brent and I together on social media. He emceed the launch I did at the beginning of last year, and she saw that and just thought, why not Brent Wilson? So yeah, publishers are watching, I guess.
Yeah, that is really interesting. That is a great little tip and great inside information there. Because I did wonder how that happened because obviously you're Toowoomba based, aren't you?
Yeah.
Toowoomba. So, close-ish to Brisbane and, in that scene, I guess, that Brisbane scene. And, and like I said, Brent's from Brisbane. So it's quite interesting to have, two authors from the same sort of scene and getting together for illustrations on your book. And I wanted to know if you had asked that, but you said that Ali just came up with that anyway.
Yeah. No, she's come up with it, and it was funny because he was on my list of people to ask potentially if I was given the opportunity. But yeah, no, she came up with it, and it's really weird. Like as you said, 14th book, but this year I've got 3 books coming out that are I've got 4 books coming out total, but 3 books which are with Brisbane illustrators, and I'm really excited for that to be able to work with local people and have illustrators attend the launch without having to go into state, and it's really. I think it helps marketing wise too.
Yeah, that is really good because it's so nice to have the illustrators there too, isn't it? Especially for a picture book, it's so important, such an important part of the book.
They have skills that those of us who are writers just don't, and they can do things at the launches that just make it way more interactive and fun. So it's great to have the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely that drawing and getting the kids to draw and practice their drawing at launches and workshops is super fun and certainly not something that I could offer at my launch anyway. I don't know how you are with drawing, Rory.
Atrocious.
Yeah, okay. So that's really exciting and that's a really interesting story to how you get there. But so we're at our 14th book now, and tell me, how did the first one happen? Can we take it all the way back and tell us how you got that very first yes?
Yeah, so my first yes was for the book Vlad's Bad Breath, and that's published by Larrikin House came out in 2020, and it came about. I wrote that story in I think 2016 or thereabouts, so a few years before it came out, and I spent a few years editing it because at the time, like all my books were in rhyme, but at the time I was okay at rhyme but not great at rhyme. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done editing it. So the bones were there, but it wasn't perfect by any means. And so a few years came by. I was working on my craft, getting better, and I was really sure that Vlad was polished. At the beginning of I think 2019, I was pretty confident that Vlad was polished. And it actually came very close to getting over the line with another publisher. I won't name them, but it ended up being a publisher. I was glad that didn't get over the line with them actually, because I feel like it wouldn't have gotten the brilliant illustrator it got in Jesus Lopez with Larrikin House. And so what happened was in about August 2019, I just signed with an agent, or was talking to an agent actually. It wasn't quite signed yet. And at that stage, because I wasn't signed, that agent was umming over different texts, and she said to me, "Oh, Vlad's Bad Breath isn't really one that I'd be interested in, but maybe you should try submitting it to Larrikin House. They're a new publisher. They seem all right." So I did my research. I straight away went to my local Dymocks. They had 2 or 3 books out at the time, so very brand new, but I could find their books in my local Dymocks, and the quality was there. Like they felt really good. They had good quality books. Good. They used good illustrators, and I thought, yeah, why not? Because that's 2 things that I really look for in a publisher: quality of the material and distribution. And so those two things ticked off, I thought, why not? And I subbed the book off to Larrikin, to James, and I was minding my own business about 6 weeks later on a Saturday, about to take my dogs for a walk, and I got an email from James, and it just said, "Hey Rory, I really enjoyed your text, Vlad. It was back then, and would you like to talk about it?" And I replied, "When are you free?" Like, and so he called me. He called me on a Saturday um, to make the offer, and like I was, my wife got a picture of it. I was like bright red and grinning ear to ear, and just over the moon. And we hadn't gone for the dog walk yet, so we afterwards we walked the dogs, and I was just skipping the whole way
Skipping it.
because it was just the most exciting moment after years of writing. So that at that stage, that was September 2019. I've been writing since about January 2016, so nearly 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, so you just submitted to like the slush pile basically at Larrikin?
Yeah, slush pile. Yeah, so I've been successful in the slush pile. I'm agented, but I have been successful in the slush pile twice. So I was successful with Vlad's Bad Breath, and I was successful with Sloth Love Parties.
Oh.
So that was a story that my previous agent had said no to, and that was different to my current agent. My current agent, everything goes through her, but my previous agent, we had an arrangement where if she wasn't in on the text, if she didn't like vibe with it, I guess
Mm.
I was free to do what I wanted with it, and so I submitted Slots Love Parties to I think 4 or 5 publishers, and they were open at the time. So like there was Walker Wednesdays, I think it was, or it might have been. I think it actually no, it was when Walker was only open twice a year. So I sent it off to them, um, sent it off to I think Harley Grant and a few others, and about 8 months went by, and I got an email again after hours, about 5:30 in the afternoon, from Coral at a firm, and it was just we really like your text, Slothful Parties, and would you be interested in discussing, is it still available? And would you be interested in discussing potentially signing it? And it was still a few months before it got over the line because it still had to go through acquisitions at that stage. But
Mm.
yeah,
That's incredible. What an incredible story. I think it's really important for aspiring authors to realize as well that even published authors do get rejected, right? Like, so,
oh,
yeah, like you still have to go through the slush pile, and it's not just you get one deal and then that's it. You just can ride on that for the rest of your life and write whatever you want, and they all get signed.
before I was signed, I started writing around the time when Aaron Blabey was having his golden age of success with like Piranhas, Don't Eat Bananas, and um, Don't Call Me Bear, and I Need a Hug, obviously
Hmm.
Pig the Pug and whatnot. And I just thought, well, Pig the Pug's a slam dunk. There must be, I mean, obviously, and all the rest of them are too. They're all brilliant. But I just thought maybe because he's having the success, they're just taking everything because everything he puts out is gems.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes I naively think that everything I'm writing is gems.
Yeah.
It's not the case. Um, but no, you said earlier, like I've got I work full time. I've got a young child, so I am writing between the cracks. But I am pretty prolific with what I write. But I would say last year I know I wrote 20 stories, and of the 20 so far, three have been picked up.
Mm.
But
Okay.
I've written that's in 1 year, but I've been writing
Mm.
since 2016. And so I've got like hundreds of stories. And when I say 2 or 3 been picked up, I've submitted last year I submitted probably through my agent, I'd say at least 10 to 12.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
most of them are it's not. I do get the benefit of having an agent is that you do get a response.
Mm.
So generally, the most common response is, "Oh, we've just got something like this on the books at the moment," or "This is just isn't quite right for us right now." Another one is that our list is currently a bit full, and I think what's important to remember when you're aspiring or whether you're published is that a no isn't a no necessarily based on the quality of your text. It can be a no for a heap of different reasons. And I can't, I'd say about half a dozen times I've had no's because there's something similar in the work. So I love Cat and Joel Temple's binge chicken books.
Mhm.
But in 2019, just after I'd signed Vibes About Breath, I'd written the binge chicken book. My agent had sent it off to Scholastic, and we had an anxious wait of about 6 weeks before we got the no, which was that they just signed something similar. And I had to wait, I think, about a year or so or more before I got to see what that something similar was. And yeah, then I saw it was the brilliant binge chicken, and
Mhm.
obviously they've sparked a series. So yeah, I think it's important to remember why sometimes you get no.
Yeah, that is really important. And it's hard. And it's hard when you don't get that feedback because you are just, you're an aspiring author without anything published yet, unagented, and you're just sending to slush piles. And so you don't really get that feedback, which is hard. So I guess I suppose it's just important to recognize that that is something that happens and to keep that in mind yourself. And yeah, I don't really know what the answer is to knowing if it is the writing. And I guess maybe that's where critique groups and writing courses and workshops and maybe mentorships and things can help you understand if that is the case. So you can get to the bottom of that and sort of, if everything seems to be okay there, just like tick that box off and think, okay, it's not that. It is probably just all these other factors that come into play.
Yeah, I think you've spoken a few times about conferences like CYA, and I think those are the opportunities. Those and competitions and the competitions at CYA are the same where they offer feedback. Opportunities for feedback, like critique groups, competitions, and editorial assessments, are brilliant for giving you that little bit extra information. So, a few of the first stories I ever wrote, I submitted to an agent at CYA in 2017. So at that stage, I've been writing. Well, when I submitted them, I've probably been writing for 12 months, and I'm a bit different to a lot of people you speak to, um, in that I never had imposter syndrome. I always thought, oh well, these are really clever concepts. Someone's going to love these, and very naive. Um, and because none of them have been picked up even since I've been published. But I sent these stories off to that assessment, and it was such an eye-opening, brilliant experience for me because it showed me that the feedback I got, which is such common sense feedback, because there's so many courses out there you can do on writing. But one of them, for example, was that my story was a good story, but it was about half the length of a picture book, so way too short. And I was like, huh. Never really. I was working in public libraries. I was reading picture books as part of my job, doing story time, and yet I never counted the pages in a picture book to know that they're either 32 or 24, and this thing was 16.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think having doing those, taking those opportunities to find feedback where you can,
Mm.
how you can separate the true uh, reasons why you might be getting a no.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you for mentioning assessments because they are a really good opportunity, aren't they? And you're actually being assessed by, can have professional editors or actual publishers, and they're the ones that you're hoping to get in front of eventually. So their information is like gold, isn't it?
Yeah, well, at that assessment I did in 2017 was with an agent who wasn't interested in picture books. I just had left it so late that I thought, well, better her than no one.
Mm.
Um, and despite not being a agent for picture books, she still gave me the critical feedback that made me um, leave CYA and then go and do a deep dive and study picture books and spend 2 years trying to perfect my craft, and writing heaps of stories in that time too. That meant that 2 years later, when I went back to CYA, I did get to sit down with an agent, and that lady ended up becoming my agent, and I did get the contact details of a publisher at Scholastic and things like that. So I think taking those opportunities where you can is very important.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the benefits, do you think, of having an agent is that you are always getting a response, and do you feel like, because I'm unagented, I don't have an agent, and so do you feel like it's someone that you can bounce ideas and suggestions off, or is there still a bit of a
Well,
barrier?
My agent is incredible. She's the loveliest lady on earth, Margaret Connolly. But what's interesting is that I can tell if Margaret likes a story because if Margaret likes a story, I'll get a phone call within 24 hours. If
Uh-huh.
Margaret doesn't like a story, sometimes I won't hear back at all. And I
Okay.
mean, to be fair, Margaret has like over 50 clients. So
Mm,
like, and that's important to remember when you're submitting to an agent or to a publisher, or if you're signed to an agent or with a publisher, you're
mm,
one person they're dealing with, and they're dealing with a lot of people.
mm,
But no, oftentimes I do get good feedback from Margaret, or just she'll what she'll say to me is, Rory, this is really good, but I want you to think, just spend the weekend, spend a couple of days, just think if you could maybe make this better. If you can't, that's fine. But
mm,
just have a reflection on might be a particular line, might be an arc in the story, but yeah, she is good at giving the feedback, and
mm,
but she probably particularly gives feedback on something that she believes in, that just isn't quite there yet.
mhm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's handy, isn't it? Can I ask how you got your agent?
My first agent I got through CYA is how I met her, and I pitched two stories, and I knew I'd studied up on her. I'd gone to a talk she'd given um, at State Library Queensland, and I knew what she was looking for, and I pitched stories I knew she'd like, and she actually didn't like them, but I was able to show her. I said, what are you looking for?" And I I made a point of very quickly drafting something that was what she was looking for and sending off to her, and that got the interest going. But um, I think there's a few ways to get it, I guess, but yeah, that's how it happened with me, and I do think it was just the stars aligning in the universe for me because Margaret's been marvelous to work with.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's a really good story. And like you said, it's not usual though, is it? But it's I guess about making connections as well and just following up on those connections.
Hello, I'm Marion Taffe, and my debut historical fiction, By Her Hand, is out now with HarperCollins' Fourth Estate. By Her Hand is set in the Kingdom of Mercia in the early 10th century, so this is England before it was England. At its heart, though, this is the story of one girl's struggle to ensure her destiny is written by her hand. That girl is Frida, who thinks in poetry and dreams of being able to write. But when she barely survives a Viking raid, she is taken to live in an abbey, and there she finds a passion for the written word, while also being torn between her growing rage and her need to belong. The bishop takes special interest in Frida's education, and as she chafes against his control, she comes into the orbit of Lady Athelflaed, the woman who rules Mercia, and she sees what it is to be a woman with power in this world of warriors. Eventually, Frida is inspired to write her rage into a poem about Judith, who beheads the enemy Holofernes. It is a poem that has the power to forge a kingdom and the power to destroy everything Frida holds dear. So though it's historical, this novel grapples with many issues we still face today: gendered violence and war, but also the gatekeeping of story and the manipulation of truth. Who gets to hold the pen and who controls the narrative? I hope you enjoy.
But can you tell me, cancelling a story at the 11th hour, that's unusual though, isn't it?
Probably pretty unusual, but I do know a few people who it's happened to, and I like to think of it as like a little badge of honor. Like, um, if it's going to happen at some point, I'm glad. Actually, so many good things came from that cancellation
Mm,
uh, that I can't begrudge it. The reasons they had for cancelling it were
mm,
like there were worries that I'd had
yeah.
and not voiced, and then their sales team were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yes, I agree." So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's interesting. Um, and yeah, so yeah, it's interesting what you say about you just sort of having worries there as well in the back of your mind, and then someone else picking up on it. So I guess, like you said, it was meant to be.
Yeah,
That's
definitely meant to be.
happened. Yeah. Okay. And look, that's what other way can you look at it? Hey, like these things happen and we know how things shift and change and, staff change and staff move and, things happen all the time. Or a book comes out exactly like it was at the exact same time. And
Yeah,
yeah, that's tricky.
I remember last year. I remember there was, I think it was last year, maybe the year before even. There was two books, not ones I'd written or was involved in, but I remember two books came out the exact same day, exact same title. One was from the UK, one was from Australia, but being Australia, they were both released in Australia as well. And I thought, oh, that you can't do anything about that. Like
Hmm.
the universe is just happening, and the ideas are out there, and yeah, sometimes it works out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent so long before I submitted to any competitions or anything like that. I had actually been writing a picture book, which I don't do a lot of, but this story just came to me because I think they do when you have little kids too. Like it's just the things that they do make you go, oh, that's hilarious. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write that down. And I don't write rhyme, but it was in rhyme. Like it just came to me in rhyme. And so I spent a lot of time trying to, go through, learn rhyme, like the whole meter and just understanding that, which is just an art form in itself. And I really liked it. I thought it was really funny. There were some things that I had to, fix up on it and the kids enjoyed it. And then just one day I was at the shop and I was like, oh my God, there is a book with the exact same title as what I had called it. And because it was a picture book, like the title was very telling of what the story was. So the story, like my story was different and it was in rhyme, whereas the other one wasn't, but it was like, there's no way anyone. So I just went, right, okay, well, that one's done because there's no way anyone's going to pick that up now because there's something, similar on the shelves.
I would say, Tina, you're fairly young. I think you should play the long game. Keep that story in your folder, and then give it 5 years and submit it. Maybe see if you can come up with a new title. See if you can make any changes to it in 5 years' time. Maybe like your mind space changes a bit, but definitely don't give up on that. I've got particularly there's one story in particular that I wrote 2 years ago, and I was so proud of this story. I was like, oh, it's not humor. It's a very poignant story about like the environment and stuff. And I was like, this is genius. Everyone's gonna love this. And I showed it to people, and I made the old lady cry, um, and I thought, oh, this is such a great story. And I showed one friend who's in the industry, and she's like, oh, that's like this story. I was like,
Oh.
oh no.
And then
Similar
did you go
title.
home and like look it up and go, oh yes, it is like that one?
Well, I did, yeah, it is similar. It's different, but similar. And what I did was, I, I don't believe in being I don't like to be the person who makes that decision. I think, your story was similar to that other story, but, someone else could see it differently. So I just put the facts in an email to my agent, said there's this story, and this story was a CBCA winner too, by the way, Tina. It wasn't like I don't know how I missed it, but I missed it, and um, I showed it to my agent, and she said, you know what, I think it's probably too close, but you know what, she also didn't want to say no. She's like, I'll show it to the publisher. Um, we showed it to Scholastic, and we gave them all the facts, and they said, nah, no, too similar, but. That story was a CBCA winner in, I think it was somewhere in the late teens, like 17, 18, 19 area. And I thought, well, you know what? At the time I was 22, not 22, 32. I intend on being a picture book author for the rest of my life. So I'll give it 10 years and I'll resubmit it. And it might still be a no then, or it might not. Or maybe in 10 years' time, I'll try it in a different market, like in the US market or in the UK market. So I don't think you should write off your idea.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put it to the side. And there's nothing wrong with being similar, is there? That's often, if a book is successful, then a lot of similar books will be written off, the back of that and around that, like just using the example of vampire books, didn't like romance hockey books about, have been a big thing as well. People just, if it's been successful, then publishers are like, something about that's working, obviously not being the same story, but with a similar vibe or a similar theme?
I borrowed a book from my local library late last year that was called Vlad and it was about a vampire. And I thought, how dare they? And I saw it and I had to read it just to make sure it wasn't a copy. It was from the US. It was a much bigger budgeted book. Did way better than Vlad's Bad Breath. Um, Completely different. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that the Vlad's a common name for vampire. But the one thing I would say related to this though is that if you're an aspiring author, or any author, and you have an idea for a story, and you do your Googling and you see there's something similar, still write your idea because you never know at what point through that idea you'll have a little brainwave that will make yours go in a different direction or just make it potentially even better than the one that's already out there and someone else sees it differently.
That's it.
So
Yeah. You're a different person with different thoughts and a different voice. And you're definitely going to come up with a different story. Not one person can ever, can
if
copy
nothing
something
else,
completely.
if nothing else, every time you write, you're improving. So always write your ideas.
That's right. Yeah. Very good advice. Can you give us some tips though on dealing with rejections? Because that's certainly something that happens to all of us and is just part of the biz, isn't it?
It is. I just think I read a post by Shawnee Avery once, where he just said, "Get a rejection, write something new. Your agent's not responding, write something new." And I think that's all you can do, really. Like rejections are part of the industry. I've written stories where I'm like, this is a shoe in with this publisher. Publishers have got good relationships with, and for whatever reason, it's just not. And that those rejections can be more disappointing, but there's always other publishers. There's always good reasons for rejection, and there's always other stories to write. I think so if you focus too much on that one story, I mean, it'd be definitely harder in your world where you're writing novels, I guess. But with picture books, I mean, obviously you care about what you've written, but it probably hasn't taken you that long to write it. And I think it's just part of the industry at the end of the day. So all you can do is you feel sad for a little bit, but then get back on that horse and keep going.
Keep writing. Yeah. Yeah. That's very common advice when we ask authors for, what's their tips for rejection? It's like, feel sorry for yourself for a little bit and then suck it up and keep on going. So I think that's the only
Don't write a strongly worded email arguing the point.
No, don't put it all over socials about. But I mean, you definitely can. Like, you see lots of people on socials, openly talking about the disappointment of rejections, which is good because it does, I guess, normalize it for everybody and kind of helps people remember.
That's what our community is about. It's about like if you can be open and honest about the highs or lows in the community. Don't need to let the publishers or agents know or hear about it. Keep it in house. We'll all commiserate or celebrate, and we'll go on together.
Yeah, good advice. So, Rory, you have many books now, and I really want to know how do you make it work? Because you are busy, and as many of our aspiring authors are, working and with a family. How are you finding the time? Do you have a routine? Are you someone that just kind of writes on the fly? How are you getting the words down, and when are you getting the words down?
I definitely don't have a routine, and it's definitely more on the fly than anything else. I tend to wait. I don't go looking for the ideas. So a lot of people I know have a routine. They'll get up early in the morning and write for an hour. And I wish I could do that, but no, I tend to wait till the idea fully evolves in my head. And sometimes it's really quick. Sometimes it takes forever. My next book that comes out, not Laugh in the Bath. The next book that comes out, I wrote on my phone when my daughter was 2 weeks old, and I was holding her in one arm and texting myself in the other with the story. So I think for me, ideas tend to come I'll hear someone say something, or I'll just think of a turn of a phrase, and that will spark the idea. And um, yeah, so I just tend to write when I get some time. So, and my wife's really supportive. So like I'll say, hey, I've just an idea for a story. Can you give me half an hour? And then even if I don't finish it in half an hour, I can get the bare bones down and then go back and edit it later on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, so are you writing the whole thing, or are you just like jotting down the idea that's come to you? Like, I want to do a story that's about this, or you've actually got some lines in your head.
Generally, I try to get down the whole idea. Um, but yeah, it really comes down to time constraints. One of the more recent stories I wrote, um, I had the idea whilst at work through the day, and then I text myself the broad idea, and then I was just so excited to write the story, and I knew I was going to have time once my daughter was asleep. Um, so I was in her room putting her to sleep, giving her a bottle, but the idea was just coming. I was like, and I think of lines, and so sometimes I worry about you can remember an idea, but sometimes you'll forget a line. So if I think of a really good line, I'll be like, oh, I've got to write that down. So that night I was holding the bottle in one hand and trying to keep my phone's light away from my daughter so she'd go to sleep with the other. So like texting like crazy, this idea. When I got out of her room, I went and sat down to write it, and most of the idea was already written on my phone.
That's good. I do have to say, I've definitely got some words down, or even like researching for a part that I'm at in my book, when I've been lying there with the kids, like when they were really little, like trying to get them to go to sleep or go back to sleep, and then you've just got your phone down the
Yeah.
side, like all the light down the lowest it can possibly go, so it's not waking them up. But yeah, it's kind of like the nap trap, when they fall asleep on you and you're trapped by the nap, and you're forced to sort of just sit there and do nothing but give them a nice squishy cuddle, but also get some words down. It can be quite handy.
Yeah, I always find I'm right. I'll be trying to text left-handed. I'm right-handed, so I find that harder. And I'll be my neck will be at an odd angle, and it's always like that when even though that light's at the most as low as it can go, it still seems so bright in a dark room.
It does. It does. I know, and you can't possibly move because you just can't wake them up. But yes. Now, look, in an ideal world for a lot of writers, just the idea of just sort of writing full time and not having to go to work and just making enough money so that they can just stay home and write is like the dream for a lot of people. So you still are working full time, like you said, but you have been able to make writing profitable for you. Can you share a little bit about that? Like do you have any tips or suggestions, or what works well for you? How can people actually make money out of this? Basically.
Yeah, no worries. So that dream is definitely my dream. I'd love to make this my full-time job, but I think so. For me, I when I had, I think, 3 or 4 books out, I had a friend who was a teacher say, "Hey, can you come to do a presentation to our class?" And I'd put together some stuff very last minute because um, I wasn't a good planner, and I put the stuff together, and it worked. It worked for that session, but I just knew it could work better. So what I did was I fleshed it out, and I think you might not have anything brand new to say if you're going to school visits or talks. You might not have anything particularly brand new to say, but it's brand new to the person you're saying it to. So if you want to create a 2 hour presentation or 1.5 hour presentation on creative writing, do it. Sure, there's 1,000 other creative writing presentations out there, but they'll all be a little bit different to yours, and the audience who are receiving it haven't seen one before. So you're the bee's knees to them. So I think if you're starting out, whether you've got one book or whether you've got a dozen, create some presentations, and they do evolve. So like you're always going to public speaking is a nerve-wracking experience. So I've spoken to in front of crowds of 400. I did that last year, and I was nervous as all hell. I was doing a presentation I'd never done before to 400 high school students, but I was forced to do that because the school asked for a specific topic, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't actually have anything on this." So I had to create something and just hope it worked, and it did work. But I think, yeah, create some content, because part of the main income you're going to have from writing is from speaking engagements. The ASA set out the rates of pay. They're pretty good rates of pay. They're definitely higher than my day job rates. So I only did maybe 8 or 9 visits last year, but that 8 or 9 visits was definitely the highest part of my income. And then over time as well, the other part of your income is royalties as well as ELR, PLR. So make sure you register for ELR, PLR, education lending rights and public lending rights. That's money paid by the government, and it's a thing that it takes a fair while to see any return on it. So a book gets registered before March each year, but it has to be in for about 12 months before you see any return. So, Tina, with your book coming out on Wednesday, you'd register it now, and you're lucky it's early in the year, so it'll get to come through the full cycle, and you'll get paid next year. But the more like that's one of the goals. Like my agent talks about critical mass, like having enough books that your back catalogue starts paying off, and so both from royalties, but also from ELR, PLR, and so last year I earned the same ELR, PLR as I did the year before. It's based on how many times your book gets used by public libraries or borrowed by public libraries or in school libraries, yeah, borrowed or photocopied or used in a class sort of thing. But this year I'm expecting to see it jump because there's books that have been in circulation now for like all my books from 2023 came out after the registration period for 2023, but so they didn't get any payment. I didn't get any payment for them last year, but them plus lots of parties I'll get paid for this year. So last year I was able to see my income for writing double, and it was in double figures, so that was positive. And I just think it's a slow process. So like I'm not trying to retire tomorrow, but it's just like the dream to be published. It's another dream that you're just working towards. So doing more school visits. I know the goal was to go to the big festivals and get paid to, fly to Western Australia and go on the road and all that. And that's my dream for sure. But that's a very competitive market, and I think you got to crawl before you can walk. So you got to you don't want to be testing your material on a big world tour. You want to be testing it in with your mates who are teachers first, maybe, and so do that, and then hopefully you'll get really good at it. Hopefully, your publishers will help with marketing. They're pitching you already to those sort of festivals. So, and hopefully you get there because that's I think the big festivals are where the opportunities come. I think once you've had a couple of them, you probably get invited back next year and the year after, and that's where I think people who are full-time authors, they might be on the road for 3 months of the year, and like with a young family, that's not viable for me. But it's definitely you can do. I work a 9-day fortnight, so I can do a school visit every fortnight if I want to. I don't have the no one's chasing me that much, but I'm ready if they want to if they listen to the podcast. And once you've got your book out there and you polished your material up a bit, then you can approach a speaker's agency and see whether they'll take you on, and they'll be pitching you to clients then too. So I'm with Creative Kids Tales Speakers Agency and Speakers Inc. There's a few other ones out there. Lamont's have one, I'm pretty sure. And so get in with them once you can. Obviously, you're competing against every other creative writer there is, but as I said, like you can do something slightly different, or just it's an industry where you really got to market yourself, and because publishers they'll put a little bit of marketing behind you, but for me being in Toowoomba, most of my publishers are in Sydney or Melbourne, so there's nothing really they can do on the ground here that's going to reach the schools and whatnot. So it's word of mouth. It's like trying to get an article about your book in the local paper, and then the grandparents see that and they're like, "Oh, you should get such and such to your grandkids' school," and those sorts of things.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome advice. It's a lot of different things, isn't it? Like, so, but schools seem to be a really good one to go to. And do you find what are the topics that they sort of want you to speak to? Is it more about how to write, or is it about particular themes?
So my first few times I went to schools was just it was the preps in grade ones just wanted me to read my stories, and that was more nerve-wracking than anything because even though that's my background, I used to do story times in public libraries. Yeah, that was more nerve-wracking than anything else because even well, particularly when I only had one book, I was like, well, I can't do a whole story time with one book. I've got to read some other books. So I'd take other people's books along to my story time and be like, and this is my friend's book. And but even then, you can only read so many books, like realistically, maybe 5 books or 6 books before you're going
Mm,
to lose their attention.
mm.
So you'll be asking questions to get them engaged and that sort of thing. Um, but for me, if you know any teachers, ask them what's in the curriculum. So for me, it only took a few of those visits before I found out that I'd be talking about the books to just asking those probing questions to get the kids engaged. I just found out, like grade two, they're learning about rhyme um, and and puns and things like that. So they get puns and they want to test it out. Or I know in grade five they're doing a big in Queensland at least they do like a big creative writing term, and I've only discovered that I've got friends who are teachers, but none of them told me, unfortunately. Could have learned quicker. But I found out that because I went to a school and they had things up on like they had projects that they were studying different authors, they were studying their books, and then like fast forward a year, I was in a school for a full day, and I went to one class, and this one little girl had done a deep dive on Rory the Lion and broken it down and had a picture of me up on there, and um, yeah, so like I think yeah, study if you can study, find out what's on the curriculum. Um, Ask your friends, ask your teachers. Sometimes your publishers will provide teaching notes, and if they've got teaching notes, then you can use them to base your sessions off too.
Mhm. That's really good advice. And yes, nerve-wracking, but that's good advice too if you do know anyone with kids or teachers or just any connections to the schools to ask them about that just to make it relevant. Because I think you also have to make it as easy as possible for them, right? Like, that you are competing with lots of other authors to get in there. So it's sort of maybe having a point of difference and yeah, making it easy. Like, this is how I fit into the curriculum. This is what I can offer
Yeah,
you. Instead of being like, what do you want? Like, yeah, maybe that's a
yeah, and this has been my first year where I've actively sort of reached out to like started reaching out to schools. Every visit I've done up to this point, I've done two smaller festivals, have been from people all in Queensland, um, searching the web and finding my books in libraries, and then going to my website and reaching out that way. So people are looking for you, but yeah, make it easy for them. Put some content up on your website. Put a contact thing up on your website to make it easy for them.
yeah.
And one other quick tip: if you go into a school, um, take a spare pair of pants or a spare outfit because you never know when a zipper's going to break or you're going to tear some pants. And I've had both of those happen in one day. So
That is very good practical advice. Thank you. Oh, that good tip. I was going to ask you, aside from school visits, just in general for the, aspiring authors out there, what is your number one top tip for aspiring authors who want to get their first book deal?
I think my number one top tip is to acknowledge what you are. So I don't think you're an author if you got your book out. I think you're an author because you're writing a book. So acknowledge yourself to your friends, your family. Find the community, create a website, create an Instagram, social media, all that sort of stuff, and just yell out to the world that I'm an author. Because for me, that was a big factor that got me out there. So I was placing in the competition, and part of what was judged was your social media presence, and I had none. Um, and so I created a website, created a social media overnight, and it was amazing how having people were supportive, having people um like saying that your dream is to be a published author, and then admitting that on social media or whatever, people want to see you achieve your dream. And I think that almost gave me the drive. There probably would be times where I felt like giving up, but I have all these people watching and I knew that I couldn't give up then and then when I did finally get that first book deal, the the amount like everyone was so excited. I used to do the hashtag get Rory published and and um when I finally got published, when I announced that Vlad's Bad Breath was going to be published, like issues like everyone I spoke to would be like, "Congratulations!"
Mhm.
And like that just adds to your own excitement. And I think so. Yeah, acknowledge what you are, acknowledge that you're an author, um, and then take the steps to make it happen. So like you can't just acknowledge you're an author and then it's not just about sitting behind your desk and writing. It's about being engaged in your community, going to conferences, and doing those sorts of things, entering competitions.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good advice. And because I actually didn't, I mean, before I was published, I had to win a competition though to give me the confidence to create like an author profile on social media and stuff like that. But I think there's a little bit of uh manifesting in doing that as well. Do you think? Like I do think
100%.
like if you just do it, then you're taking those steps. I don't know if you call it manifesting or if it's just you're taking those steps that are needed to get towards the goal that you want. So just do it and it's just gonna help you get there. It's a little bit closer to your goal.
100%. I think it's a bit of a it's a bit of a numbers game and a willingness to pursue the dream. Like if you it's a difficult industry to break into, and you have to be willing to make changes. You have to be willing to like take on feedback and work with it. But I honestly believe that if you're constantly writing, constantly reading, seeing what's out there, and willing to take on feedback, I feel like if you're and taking the opportunities that come up, so like entering competitions, going to festivals, just keeping an eye out for any possibilities of pitching to the right person for you, not just anyone, but make sure it's the right
Mm-hmm.
person for you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's you the odds of getting a deal are pretty high. Like they're not they're still probably less than 50%, but 50% if you're only submitting one story. The more stories you write, the more you pitch, the odds are exponentially higher.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
just got to be doing it.
Yeah. Yes. We have interviewed authors before that have said it's a numbers game sometimes. Like, I mean, obviously you have to have the quality of the writing and the ideas and everything has to still, you know, be of, publishable standard, I guess, but it's just a numbers game. Just keep putting it out there and keep trying and don't give up.
Yeah, well, in that first 3.5 years of writing, I wrote, I would say, 30 to 40 stories. And to this day, most of them are still just sitting in the folder on my laptop because they weren't up to a standard. At the time, I thought they were. I was seeing them out into the world, thinking they're mad if they don't sign me. Um, but they weren't. But every time you write a story, you do get better. So
Mhm.
it really is a numbers game.
Yeah, yeah, and that is all part of it, isn't it? It's practice. And I remember listening to podcasts and hearing people say, "Oh, I spent 4 years writing these things and these manuscripts that aren't published," and I just used to think, "Oh my God, that is so long. That's never going to happen to me." 20 years later, I'm like, you know, um, but it really does, and the time's passing anyway, right? So you might, if you enjoy writing, just keep writing. It's gonna make you better at it. And yeah, numbers game, keep putting it out there.
Yeah, and obviously don't take feedback from the right people.
Mm,
Sometimes what was helpful for me was getting. I didn't ask for it, but I got it. I got feedback from someone who I really respected, who was really blunt to the point. Um, it was Siggy Cohen, author of My Dead Bunny, who's really really good at rhyme, and he was the person who told me, um, your rhyme's not up to scratch. So you're
mm,
submitting all your stories and your rhymes up to scratch. So, um, and he really forced me to up my practice of rhyming. And
mm,
so I think having someone who's willing to give you critical feedback, as long as you respect them,
mm,
and you don't have to take it on. Sometimes critical feedback's just critical, but
mm,
sometimes it resonates. And
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's probably like with any skill that you're learning. Yeah, sometimes it can be harsh, but it's as long as it's helpful and you can learn from that. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
So, at the risk of you offering me harsh advice, no, I'm sure that you won't. This is mine and Madeline's debut year. Like my book comes out in 2 days. Woohoo! So close now. Do you have any tips for us in our debut year?
I think just celebrate it. Like, you know, don't be afraid of sharing that cover 1,000 times. I'll like it every time. And, you know, but also do be aware that people do get sick of seeing the same content. So, see if you can find other things to share, like your book launch and stuff like that. But no, just enjoy it. I think it's never, it's going to sound bad, but it's never as good as the first time. Like it's always exciting to get a book deal, but the first one's always the best, and the first release is always the best. I remember my first book launch, I felt like a celebrity because I had a queue of people weighing up to sign my book, and I was like, oh, what do I write? But I think, just embrace it, enjoy that moment, and seize every opportunity that you can. It's take leave, speak to your publisher. I think even if you don't recoup the money, go to Sydney or go to Melbourne and just do a little bookshop tour or book tour wherever you can. Go to Brisbane. I know it's closer.
Toowoomba?
Do it. Definitely come to Toowoomba. If you come to Toowoomba, I will we'll do a launch, and I'll share it to every person I know, and we'll hopefully sell a few books.
Oh, thank you, Rory. It's been so great chatting to you today, and so many amazing tips and advice that you've offered, not just to me, but to our listeners as well, which is incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Book Deal podcast. We're able to bring you these weekly writerly chats because of our amazing patrons. Join the TPD family by becoming a member of our Patreon community at patreon.com/the Book Deal podcast. And if you love the pod, please give us a rating or review. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook.